Okay, so the next lecture is lecture 11. I'm gonna to talking about monopoly, which is only one firm and price makers. You should keep in mind that in monopoly, the firms can decide what price they are going to set, not just the price takers. That depends on consumers. So here's an assumptions. The assumption is single price. That means we don't allow in this model we don't allow the monopolist to set up price discrimination. The profit maximization is when the marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. And remember here in monopoly, the price would wouldn't wouldn't equal to the marginal cost because they are price makers. And the marginal revenue is no longer price. The marginal cost also not dependent on market structure. So the marginal revenue equals to this price 2. That means the original price. And if the monopolist want to sell one more product, it's a kind of marginal revenue. So if the monopolist wants to sell one more product, here is a poison effect. That means that means the monopolist need to lower all the items prices in order to sell another item. So it's Q1, and the P1 minus P2 is the poison effect. So we can get the equation is P plus dP over dQ times Q. The dP over dQ. That means another let's poisoning effect. The dP over dQ, that means how poisoning effect how big the poisoning effect is. If the quantity rises, how would the price going? So it's a range. Yeah, it's obviously that in perfect competition market, it's equals to 0. So that's why we get the marginal cost equals to marginal revenue equals to prices in perfectly competition markets. But now remember the monopolist has poisoning effect. So it is to sell one more unit, you have to lose some revenue on all the previous units. So let's see an example. We derive the marginal revenue curves, and it always below the demand curves. So the quantity is 24 minus P. The price is this. So we can simply know the revenue equals to the price times Q. And this equation, so marginal revenue, just differentiate this equation. You get 24 minus 2Q. That is this. And the demand curve is 24 minus Q. The demand curve is 24 minus Q. Yeah, it's a sen, obviously. Okay, So how we do profit maximization? So the marginal cost equals to marginal revenue, and we differentiate each. We want to solve the for Q stop. Check down shutdown rule. We need to check it out. Okay. The price is so the price is this, and the profit is price times Q star and minus average cost times Q star. So we can simply see these graphs. Marginal cost, it's a linear line, and the average total cost is a parabola, because I have said in the beginning the capital is very high. The capital cost is very high, but once you put a lot of labor, they give you a lot of marginal benefits, the marginal cost, so your total cost start to lower down. And in this intersection, which marginal cost equals to average total cost, it's less in that intersection, this unit of labor equals to the marginal cost of hiring this labor. So it's a lowest point. If we hire more labor, then the total cost will goes up, because the next labor, which is the marginal benefits, is high, is less than its marginal cost. Okay, so the average variable cost, we can say, yeah, average cost, the average variable cost is this line, and the average fixed cost begin is very high, but as time goes by, it goes down. Okay, so how is a monopolist powered market power? The revenue equals to this already sets, and we can just try to Q. We change it to Q over P times P, and we find it is inverse of epsilon, which is inverse of Eisen's elasticity. Okay, so then we get the marginal revenue is price times 1 plus the inverse product electricity. So the way monopolistic firms set price is dependent on the demand of demand electricity. It's very important conclusion. So if the epsilon equals to -1, the marginal revenue is 0. Why? Why? Because if the epsilon equals to -1, that means um if you so let's by definition we can got the marginal revenue equals to 0. Okay, so if we move P over the left formula, the marginal cost over P equals to 1 plus the inverse elasticity, and we can get this, the price minus marginal cost divided by over the price equals to negative inverse elasticity. It's how much above marginal cost a monopoly can charge. How much above the marginal cost. is price minus marginal cost can monopoly can charge. It's really depending on demand elasticity. Okay, so let's we'll break down the revenue of monopolist. Now we talk about welfare effects, which is relatively and relatively a normative economics. Market value. So the private market equilibrium that maximize the social welfare. And in real life situation, the monopolist can do price discrimination. That is charge different price for each consumer. And if the perfect discrimination funds is set a price at consumers' willingness to pay. So the social welfare is totally equals to the producer surplus because every single consumer pay what they willing to pay. So all the consumer surplus equal to the zero. Yeah, social welfare is the same as perfect competition, but all goes to producer. Yeah, we can talk about we can see this graph. The competition market is CS, PS, this, and the monopolist market, the CS equals to A. And because because the monopolist probably will sell that less than the perfect competition market. So here is, and which causes the deadweight loss. Okay, so the next lecture 12, we're talking about original of monopolist to cost advantages. Mm, that means natural monopoly. That it, like if you want to be a water supplier, you need to invest very huge amount of money before you start this fund. And the fixed cost is so large that average cost is almost falling. And it's impossible barrier to entry. It's costs a very high entry fee. Or the monopolies can go the government actions. The government can be monopoly provider. So the government establish the monopoly like postal services, and the patents. It's which funds have exclusive right to sell products. Like problem is patents start at the beginning of the trial, so the funds are patenting minor changes in drugs, not novel drugs. Yeah, patent have some problems, but it's a source. It's a source of government actions of monopoly. So we talk about how monopoly make money, how monopoly to affect the price and the quantity, how to design that, the average cost line, marginal cost line, marginal revenue poisoning effect, and we analyze the welfare economics of the monopolist. Then we are going to talk about how to address monopolists. Because we if if one fund is monopoly and insolent, the government can't just let a monopoly set a very high prices, right? So he must compete with some strategies. The one is regulation. to set a regulation to adjust monopolies, obtain optimal equilibrium. That means if the government knows what market equilibrium price is, they can set a um price floor. So the quantity and the price will be the same as competition as a perfect competition market. So we can just we don't have to create those that were lost by monopolists and to get rid of poisoning effect or to create competition. That means charter schools, local choices of public schools is a system of American school because if you're a monopolist, if you know in a certain area you are the strongest, and if your school you may not have incentives or driving force to maximize your efficiency because all the students in that area could choose just you. You are the only school in that area. So you don't have to do really hard like to to get some students you don't need. So the government can create a competition by setting that school like a charter school. Then you have these incentives to work harder because you are afraid that students will go to charter schools. You will choose charter school, not you. Okay, that's that's how to address monopolist and contestable markets. Just because there is a monopoly doesn't mean they have a lot of market power. Because even if the monopoly, like even if a shampoo or something, different type, different funds can just change a certain ingredient or something to make to differentiate their products. So it's contestable markets. For example, airline deregulation used to be regulated, but enormous said it was a contestable market. So governments deregulate airline markets. Let it be. So the government deregulated means this they don't set a price or something. They just deregulate. So um so if the government let different airlines to compete with each other, they will achieve more social welfare than just governments regulated. So price goes down, the routes goes up after the government deregulated it, and flying become a bad experience before firms competed on quantity. The deregulation worked, but still natural monopoly due to airports. Even though um even though one firm is very has a lot of money and buys a lot of plane want to start this airline business, but there are limited airports. That means the space is not very, it's limited. So even though you have a lot of plans, you are going to start your airlines company. If even if you do less, but you don't have the land, you can't start. So it's a contestable market. So that's all the monopoly. We could quickly review it. Price makers and the marginal revenue how we derive the marginal revenue curves, and the market power is um highly related to the electricity of demand. So the welfare economics, the market failure, price discrimination, and if we are a monopolist, we sometimes make a deadweight loss because we don't have to produce so much quantity compared to the perfect competition market. And the origin of monopolist, how to adjust monopolist, government, and create competition. And just yeah, it's just an example of create competition. So that's all about monopolist. Thank you for listening.